Hi everyone, my name is Amelia. I am the events coordinator at Yet Again. Yet Again was founded last year to give young people a space to discuss atrocity. Since the Holocaust, the words never again have come to symbolize a global commitment to prevent atrocity, but this is a failed and unrealized ambition. Perpetrators of atrocity act with impunity so long as we unknowingly look past their transgression. So here at Yet Again, we aim to shine a light on modern atrocity and encourage our network to engage critically with international justice. And tonight's event is in collaboration with the Tarim network, and I will pass you on to Ilziba to introduce you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ilziba Yusuf and I am a volunteer with the Tarim network. The Tarim network is a family of passionate individuals creating a platform to unite, inspire, and advance Uyghur youth community around the world. Our mission is to create a global Uyghur youth community that inspires and cultivates excellence while providing cultural and social enrichment for its members. And essentially our purpose is to relieve the needs of the community and support the preservation of Uyghur culture and heritage.
So the Muslim Uyghur population in China are the victims of genocide and crimes against humanity. Earlier this month, many of us here at Yet Again and other organizations attended the Uyghur Tribunal in London. This is a people's tribunal to investigate these alleged crimes by the CCP. We heard the testimonies of victims and witnesses who presented a picture of the relentless and targeted abuse of the Uyghur population. So the cultural lineage of Uyghur traditions and customs is under a state of attack. So this series, An Introduction to Uyghur Culture, will seek to engage and introduce our audiences to the rich cultural histories of the Uyghur people. And today's session will focus on music.
We are privileged to be accompanied by today's speakers and performers, Raymond Mahmoud and Professor Rachel Harris. Professor Rachel Harris is an ethnomusicologist and a professor at SOAS University of London. Her research focuses on China and Central Asia, and she has done fieldwork with Uyghur communities for a period of almost 20 years. Her latest book, Soundscapes of Uyghur Islam, focuses on Uyghur women's religious life in the lead up to and during the current crackdown. She also provided a report as an expert witness at the tribunal earlier this month. As well, Raymond Mahmoud is a Uyghur activist, singer, and translator. She is the UK project director of the World Uyghur Congress and executive director of Stop Uyghur Genocide. Rahima has worked tirelessly on advocating for the rights and lives of the Uyghur population and is an award-winning translator as well as a very talented singer. At the tribunal, she translated live the testimonies of witnesses and survivors of Uyghur abuse, detainment, and so-called re-education camps. Now, before we begin, if you would like to ask one of our speakers a question, please know that you can do so by messaging any of the hosts on the Zoom chat during the course of the event. Now, Rachel, can you tell us about what drew you to study Uyghur music and a bit about your experience doing fieldwork in Xinjiang and other Uyghur communities?
Thank you, Ilziba, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I feel like I'm quite an old friend of Tarim Network, but this is actually the first time I've done an event with Yet Again, so I really wanted to thank you guys for putting this together. You know, I was at the tribunal for quite a few of the days, and I was just so impressed that there were all these young people sitting there like all day listening to this really extremely harrowing testimony. So it's great to learn like who the organisation is that brought all those young people to that tribunal. And I just really appreciate this idea of getting into the culture. You know, it just speaks to me that you're not just into activism for its own sake. You know, what you do is not just about yelling about what a terrible place China is. You know, actually you have an interest in the kind of culture that is being lost at this point. So I really appreciate that. Right. So you want to know a bit about my own journey into this culture, and actually I started further east. I studied Chinese at university and spent time in Beijing, and then really I began to work my way back west to that region, which is the Uyghur region, East Turkestan, or Xinjiang as it's officially known. So that, I mean, this was in the days of independent backpacking, you know, pre-internet, pre-mobile phone, all of that. So I just went off on a train on one of those kind of 3-day journeys from Beijing to Urumqi, and found this really incredible place, just really something very different. So it was during that kind of backpacking early period that I got to listen to Uyghur music for the first time, and it was in the bazaars, I suppose, really. And again, you know, oh God, all this old technology. So this was in the period of cassettes, and in the bazaar, alongside all the noodle shops and things, there were lots of cassette shops, and they would all be like blaring out this kind of music, pop music, Uyghur pop, more calm, like the classical music, Dolan, and so you know, it's very kind of vivid. Even in my memories now, when I hear these songs, you know, I can just see that kind of incredible, like, hustle and bustle of the bazaar, you know. And then the other place, I guess, was on these long distance bus journeys. So if you wanted to go to Kashgar in those days, there was actually no train to Kashgar, and I'd have to like take a bus through the desert. So that was another, like, very intense kind of encounter with Uyghur music, because you're trapped there with the choices of the bus driver. You know, he gets to say what you listen to for 2 days through the desert. So it was all that, really.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Yeah, it's fascinating to hear some of your background as well, even after meeting you. I was just wondering, Rahima, as well, for a quick introduction, if you could just tell us a little bit about your own history and reasons for music making and singing.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you, and thanks for yet again and the Tarim Network organized this event. And it's great to see young people interested in the Uyghur culture, music, and also, the most importantly, the course, what is happening and what we try to preserve. So I was born in Roja, a very musical family and also religious family. My father is a very religious background, come from a very religious background, and my mother, the generations of my from like great grandfather, they were all musicians and very talented. So I was born and brought up in the kind of environment that I had that musical genes, luckily. So so from the time maybe 4 or 5, I've been singing, just following my brothers and my sisters, and whenever when there is a family gatherings, we always had music. So is also in the Uyghur culture, I'm sure, and Rachel agree with me, there is no party without music. If you say you went to the party and if there is no musicians or the chak or the comedians who make you laugh, especially in Roja, that's a very kind of a tradition. So that is the my background, and my earliest memory of my mother was always she was always singing quietly, although she never performed in public, but we had a dutar, tambur, a violin, drum in the house. So whenever like 2-3 families come together, And especially in the summer, we used to play just in the courtyard, and the neighbors would just sit on the wall, and we would just call them in, and then they just turned into a kind of big kind of party. So that is a kind of memories that I miss a lot. And also my father, his business was a fruit business. We used to buy apple orchards. So my summer holidays, most of my summer holidays, I spent in these apple orchards. And so especially when the apple picking season, we used to go, one of us in one branch of the trees and another one. So we would be singing like one will sing one song, and then someone else will be just carrying on. So it's just a very natural kind of this musical environment. How can I say, it's kind of family trained. I never been to music school, or I never took any lesson or anything, but that beautiful family background gave me this talent and beautiful memories that I've been carrying on. So now whenever I feel down, I can just sing, and when I close my eyes, I just feel that I go back to those places, my childhood favorite places.
Thank you so much, Rahima. And I can see you're wearing some of your traditional dress today. So thank you for that. I'm sure we'll appreciate it. So the first clip we're going to play is a piece of classical Uyghur music. Is there anything you'd like to say just to contextualize this? To either of you, that is.
Well, me and Rachel, and along with several other musicians, we set up first ensemble, London Uyghur Ensemble in 2004, and we have been playing music together since. And so our repertoire include the classical Uyghur maqam and folk songs. And I would actually pass about maqam part to Rachel. Rachel can tell more about the Uyghur maqam. So this is the first one is Nawa maqam. And so I invite Rachel to give a bit more explanation about the maqam. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we should listen to a bit of it first, and then I'll think of something interesting to say, no doubt.
Bu miskin zor meşrep eser beni yoklar şim bana Ah Leyli kız Leyli yarının var mı kimeyli Ah Leyli kız Leyli yarının var mı kimeyli olsa olmasa meyli örgüle çaygım çörgüle şaygım ben yarının xeridari yarime şaygım yarının xeridari yarime şaygım Ah Leyli kız Leyli yarının var mı kimeyli Ah Leyli kız Leyli yarının var mı kimeyli olsa olmasa meyli örgüle şaygım çörgüle şaygım ben yarının xeridari yarime şaygım ben yarının xeridari yarime şaygım ya değmen yanına değmen ölmesen bile değmen ya değmen yanına değmen ölmesen bile değmen minnin tatkan derdimdi gönlüde bile değmen minnin tatkan derdimdi gönlüde bile değmen yarın killer kozilli doğru doğra yol illi yarın killer kozilli doğru doğra yol illi hey yerden çıkıp yürgümge ot silli hey yerden çıkıp yürgümge ot silli hey yerden çıkıp yürgümge ot silli yarım senin bu melenge oynayıp geldim yarım senin bu melenge oynayıp geldim meyli bana meyli yok mu dilleydip geldim meyli bana meyli yok mu dilleydip geldim gül bağlada yüreydip geldim bille oynap gül bağlada yüreydip geldim men gülükke bille ötüp yüreydip geldim men gülükke ayrılmazsa yüreydip geldim seni dedim seni dedim seni dedim ah seni dedim seni dedim seni dedim ah seni tapamıgan endi tapmayım yürek bağrım kare kare yürdi kaldım seni dedim seni dedim seni dedim ay seni dedim seni dedim seni dedim ay seni izlep tapamıgan endi tapdım seni izlep tapamıgan endi tapdım
Wow, that was amazing. It was amazing seeing both Rachel and Rahima, performing in that clip. So Rachel, can you tell us about some of the instruments that are being played there?
Oh, sure, sure. Oh my God, it's just so nostalgic to watch that. That takes us back to the pre-COVID times, and all of our beautiful band there have been scattered to the four winds, So there was Shotaro playing oud, which is not a traditional Uyghur instrument, I hasten to say, and he's back in Japan. And there was our beautiful Iranian instrumentalist playing saz, right? She's back in Iran now. And our incredible dancer, Tara, who's, she's from California originally, and she's gone back there for lockdown. But she trained as a professional dancer in Urumqi, in the Uyghur region. So she does steal the show a bit, but it is so amazing to see her there with those actual china tea bowls, you know, and I don't know, like my video was a bit jumpy, maybe it was better for you guys, but she's actually got water in there and she's pouring water at the end from one bowl to another. So yeah, no, that is a very joyful performance, that. Yeah, man. So there were a couple of like proper traditional Uyghur instruments in there. You could see me playing dutar, the 2-stringed long neck lute, and Iskandar was playing a rawap, which is like the local pronunciation for rubab, is the more widely known term for that kind of lute that you play like that, right? So I mean, this is one thing about Uyghur culture, right? That it is kind of linked very directly to this wider world of music across the Islamic world, and so all these terms kind of get refracted. You know, the pronunciation is slightly different. So there's the question there in the chat asking if it's makam or mukam. So I mean, the local term is mukam, but I mean clearly it's part of that whole kind of makam world. And so Uyghur mukam is really a set of 12 like large-scale suites of music. You know, each one properly should last like a whole 2 hours, and you should play from this very meditative, slow, free rhythm muqaddimeh, like an introduction, and then end up with these fast dance pieces. But what you got there was just a little kind of mini suite within a suite. So we had Jula, Senem, and Chongseleke, and they have these lovely contrasting rhythms. So you go from a kind of mid-speed 4-beat to quite a fast 2-beat, and then a very kind of funky 5-beat. Yeah, so it's always really fun to play that, you know, because basically it's the same tune, but kind of stretched over these different rhythms in different ways. So I always like that particular combination. Yeah. So I mean, you know, it's the way it all comes together, isn't it? There's the beautiful dancing, and the music itself, which is very interesting, you know. And so Rahima said that was called Nawa, you know. So Nawa is the name for Makam, which again is found like right across the Islamic world to all the way to North Africa. But it has, you know, Nawa in Uyghur music is actually quite a different mode from what you'd find in the Arab world, which is quite interesting. So, you know, these kind of links between names and sounds do kind of change a bit as you travel along the Silk Road, you know. Yeah, but the third part of it, of course, is the lyrics. So you know, you have these amazing lyrics, which Rahima sings there in these mukam pieces. And generally they're taken from the poetry of these like medieval Central Asian poets. So Nawai is very important, and I think in that clip we had some of the poetry of Shah Meshrep, who is a really wonderful poet. You know, I really he's one of my favorites, Shah Meshrep, because he's a very anarchic kind of religious figure. You know, he's got a bit of kind of Sufi in him, but he's mainly a kind of you know, a rule breaker, one of those kind of very ecstatic poets. And there are great stories associated with him as he travels around the region and encounters all these powerful figures like kings and powerful imam, you know, in the mosque, and makes fools of them all. So I'm very fond of Shah Meshrep.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I think it's interesting to remember that some of our audience here today will have never seen this kind of this Uyghur dance and the performance and the instruments, and whereas others will be familiar with it. So it's great to hear that sort of context from you. And I know you've spoken to us before about your new project research on Meshrep in Kazakhstan. And firstly, I'm just sort of wondering how, if at all, this performance ties into that, and what is Meshrep, and am I even pronouncing it correctly today?
Yeah, you're totally correct. Yeah. Yeah, no, I've been saying Shah Meshrep there, haven't I? So I mean that is one link. You know, Meshrep in Uyghur culture is so important. I mean, okay, so I mean, for one thing, there is the name of the poet. Then there's the literal translation. I guess originally it comes from Arabic, right? And it means like a spring, you know, a spring of water or a source of water. And so also it means kind of inspiration, you know, drinking in the desert. And so there's quite a strong, again, that religious link to the Sufi traditions. You know, so the Sufis in the Uyghur tradition, they have this very, again, very beautiful body of music and poetry that they sing as part of their rituals. So that's another kind of meshrep. But for most Uyghurs, I think meshrep is basically a party, you know, so properly speaking, it means like a social gathering, I suppose. And Uyghurs all over the region, you know, hold particular like local kinds of meshrep, and they just have such an important place in the culture. Hey, Rahima, you must have sung at a few meshrep in your slightly younger days, huh?
Oh yes, I have 4 brothers, so almost every of them, they all had their own group of a mashup. So during the winter, so each of them had this mashup party in the house. So mashup is very much male kind of party, and it's very interesting. I always remembered watching from the like a window of from you know, standing outside and watch from the window about the performances, and also the punishments that if someone was late or if someone didn't answer the question correctly. And so the mashup itself is in a fun way to pass the tradition of the rules and how the young people should be behaving, you know, correctly when treating the elderlies. And so it's using kind of very fun way of teaching those traditions. I particularly enjoyed that sort of like when they were when they had to crawl, and when they had, there was many different ways of punishing the one who didn't obey or didn't answer some of the questions correctly. And then this kind of laughter was just very funny. And then singing and dancing and all part of mashrep. What I miss most is that kind of togetherness, you know, because in Golja, especially in villages, because I lived in the village until I was 11. So the long winter is very long and cold. So people spend there, especially men, they always look forward to this mashrep party. And preparing for mashrep, and of course, girls and women has to work very hard and cook for so many people. And it's that togetherness and that bond, you know, being together and passing the tradition. And young children would also go in, and then they will all sit aside and they watch what is going on. So yeah, and one of the reason that Golja massacre that happened in 1997, the February the 5th, you know, a peaceful protest that was suppressed, and the CCP deployed military and opening fire on these peaceful protesters. And one of the slogans of that protest was to say that mashrab is not a crime, because that was a time that they banned the mashrab. I believe it was around 1995, if I remember correctly. That was a time, because for Roja people, especially the people living in villages and rural area, mashrab is so important, but banning that is like you just completely destroying something that we inherited for centuries, and practicing it with joy. It's completely peaceful and is a beautiful tradition, and also the revival of mashrab actually also because of the drug addictions and other crimes increased during the late 80s. And the mashrab movement was to using this kind of a traditional gathering to teach people and stay away from alcohol and from drugs. But that was banned. Sadly, that mashrab is no longer freely practiced in East Turkestan. But I think there are times that the Chinese government made some kind of shows calling all the different mashrabs, and people have this gathering and all the musics, playing music. Mashrab is not just about singing and play music. So like Rachel said, it is a very different kind of cultural tradition, very unique for the Uyghur people.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, some of you may be well aware that the Chinese government submitted Uyghur mashrab to UNESCO as an item of intangible cultural heritage. Oh gosh, it's about 14 years ago, right? Back in 2009, they first submitted it. Yeah, I got involved with that whole UNESCO business because they actually asked me to be an external assessor, like an assessor of the submission. And it was a very difficult thing for me, to decide if I should recommend to UNESCO that they should accept the Uyghur mashrab as an official item of intangible cultural heritage, or if I should recommend against it, and so, I mean, the problem was that, of course, in 2009, we were just coming into this terrible period of repression following the 2009 July violence in Urumqi, so there was this terrible crackdown going on the back of that, and of course, as Rahima says, proper kind of local community mashrab were just not happening. They were banned. And so I thought, if I really recommend to UNESCO that they accept this submission and accept that the Chinese government is kind of protecting Uyghur mashrab, then, that's just going to be supporting really a whitewashing of the suppression that's going on. So I recommended against UNESCO accepting that submission, and was completely ignored. Actually, the government officials, the Chinese delegation said that I was influenced by bad elements and separatists. Probably some of them are in the room today, right? And it went ahead, so it is now on the UNESCO lists, this mashrab. But what we've seen since then is just purely this kind of transformation of mashrab into these kind of singing and dancing shows, So I think what Rahima is saying is just so important, that when music making is part of community life like that, then, it has such power to really, bring the community together, to educate the young, all of these things. And what we see now are these kind of stage shows, which is just a hollow shell, really, of what Meshrep should be.
Yeah, thank you so much to you both. And I think although we are separated, as you said, you know, looking back onto that clip and feeling nostalgic about it, you can still feel it's a very energetic performance and a very energetic video. And although we can't see it live here today, you can sense that. And thank you for talking about that. So Rahima, you've discussed already a little bit about your relationship with the Meshrep movement. I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how and when you left China.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very much that 1997, the Rolja massacre that happened. I was visiting my mother because I was working in a town called Dushenzi or Maitar in Uyghur. And my son, Zulfikar, who's also the co-founder of the Tarim network. And he was a 1.5-year-old at that time. And that winter vacation, I was a teacher then. Suddenly this protest happened. And it was one of the coldest winter day, 5th of February. And it was also Ramadan, during Ramadan. I believe it was the 17th of Ramadan, quite an important day, religious day. And for 3 months, the Chinese government cracked down on religion and arrested mainly the Uyghur young male religious clerics, who are the very much center of the youth community, and also many of them like Otuz Oğul Beşi is like a head of the 30 men, they call it. So they are very important. Their position in the community is very, very important. They were taken away suddenly, and police raiding houses and raiding places where men gathered, and then they just arresting. And one of the very close family member was also arrested. Prior to this, when I arrived, I've learned that I was shocked at the time, because he's one of the most respected person who never involved in anything that is illegal or violent. So then 5th of February, that Rolja protest happened. Most of the people who initiated this protest was those who lived in villages nearby Rolja city. And then the people in the city, after seeing this protest, and they were already fuming with anger because of Meshrep ban and many other things, and cultural suppression, all that. So the initial approximately 200 people, that increased to almost 2,000 or even more. And then the deployed military and opened fire, then followed by mass arrests. So from that evening, 5th of February, police raided houses and taken away mostly young male. So there were many of my family, distant relatives and friends were arrested during that time. So I left Rolja about 1 week after that massacre that happened. I was very shaken, and I said to myself, I don't want my son one day to be arrested like that. I need to find a way to live. So that was the turning point, that I made my decision that I will try to find a way. And eventually I got the visa to study as a student to come here to do a master's degree in 2000. And I left. Zulfikar was 5 years old at the time. And my biggest worry was that whether I can bring him. So he joined me in 2002. And I believe that was the right decision that I made. So look at him now, and you know, my life. Yeah.
Yeah, Rahima, thank you for sharing that story with us. It's definitely a very, harrowing experience to go through. And it really reminds me of, the similarities to the 2009 protests, which also happened in Urumqi. So just moving on to the next performance or video. Rahima, what are we about to see and how is it different to the first performance that we saw earlier?
Okay, this is a song that actually it was that my own composition. Yığla Shamal, it was Chimengul, it was one of a very well-known female poet, and I always loved her poems. And so when I learned that she was also arrested along with many other her colleagues from Kashgar Publishing House, and especially when I read the poem after she was arrested, I felt something in this poem, Yığla Shamal, that's telling this very deep, as kind of story, the sadness that you cannot express, you cannot even cry. So it's a Yığla Shamal, oh wind, let me learn cry from you. That really touched my heart. And so I just sang while reading this poem, and just with the inner kind of voice that came to my head from my heart. I sang it and I recorded it. And then one day I received a message from Al Jazeera, a film producer, Victoria, and who asked if I produce music because they wanted an original song for a documentary they are making for Uyghur living in the unknown. So I said, well, I don't have a ready song, but so I explained to her that this song that I have produced, and maybe I can make it, ready for that documentary. So I contacted brilliant musicians, one of the brilliant Shotaro, the Japanese musician. So I sent my plain singing recording from my phone, and he loved it, immediately liked it, and he improvised it, and then we did a recording and we sent it to the Al Jazeera, and they used it for this living in the unknown. And I know that they won quite a lot prize, that not the music but the program, that short documentary about life of three young women in Turkey. So that was quite a kind of achievement. So yeah, that's a background story about Yığla Shamal.
That's brilliant, thank you. So I think we're going to show a clip now from that performance, and then I will speak some of the lyrics of that poem in English.
Yığlaşamam Küküz tutkan deryalar Yığlaşamam Dere kuyum seynar Yarğa bakkan kar gözüm bolsun seninki Yarğa eykan lehte sözüm olsun seninki Yığla şamal bağrındaki ok benimki Men yığlaştı Ügüney sendin Yığlaşamam Tağu taşın feryadı üçün Yığlaşamam Laçındanın armanı üçün Yığlaşamam Meşuklarının dermanı üçün Ben yığlaştım Ügüne sen Yığlaştım Ügüne sendin
So brilliant, yeah. So you just saw there the last couple of minutes of the performance. Rahima has asked me to speak the lyrics of this poem in English, so I'm about to do that. The poem is called O Wind Cry. O wind cry, let me learn from you. O wind cry for the leaves you have felled, for the winds you have opened, for the forests where you used to hide. I will learn to cry from you. O wind cry for the flowers, the lilacs you have scattered, for the rivers you have turned to blue ice, for the plains are without trees. I will learn to cry from you. Let me offer the dark eyes I tend to my lover. Let me offer the heartbreak I utter to my lover. O wind cry, the bullet in your heart is mine. I will learn to cry from you. O wind cry for the anguish of stones and mountains, for the hopes and dreams of falcons. For the torment of lovers, I will cry from you. So Rahima, is there anything you would like to add now that we have seen that performance? And again, it's so brilliant to be able to play it here to everyone today. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that I translated that as well. So yeah, I became quite emotional actually, just listening to it, and then the lyrics.
I mean, it's such a beautiful poem that, you know, and it's there's really such a strong tradition. I mean, quite a tragic tradition, but a very strong tradition of Uyghur poets, you know, getting locked up, being executed. You know, you can trace the whole kind of 20th century history of Uyghur literature in a way by all these poets who have been arrested or executed, and so many of those poems have come into the song repertoire now. You know, so it was an amazing thing to take this this woman poet who was, you know, detained in 2017, was it, and to bring her words into the song repertoire, and it is so moving to hear it. We once did a whole concert, didn't we, of like songs by detained poets, by God. that was quite an intense experience. But this is such a beautiful song, this one, you know, because the style of it is so kind of classic Ghoulja. You know, it's really in the style of Rahima's hometown. It's just a very perfect little song, I do think.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. So then that gave me more confidence that actually I can compose.
Rachel, I was just wondering, so you said it was, a very classical, Ghoulja style song. Does it differ to any, is there a difference between this performance and other classical pieces, or is it just a representative of a very classical, piece?
Yeah. I mean, I said like a classic Ghoulja song, you know, so I suppose you could kind of make a difference between that kind of folk song tradition it is really, and the muqam, which people tend to call classical a bit more. It is a different kind of style, definitely. The muqam has a bit more kind of complicated stuff going on in terms of the just the structure of it, perhaps, and the poetry, you know. But these folk song traditions are really amazing as well, you know. I mean, it's powerful stuff, and actually rhythmically and melodically they're so interesting, and every local area has its own kind of style, you know. So there's a very particular style from Ghoulja which has these wonderful, really wide melodies, you know. You have to have quite a vocal range to be able to manage them. You go from very low to very high, you know. Yeah. So yes, we sing like songs from all the different parts of the Uyghur region, actually, don't we? You know, the Kashgar songs are also quite fun. They're very Hijaz. You know, our Turkish collaborators really like the Kashgar style because it's quite familiar for them. But the Ghoulja style is something a bit different. You know, I mean, this is one of the really fun things about playing in London. You know, that we've managed to draw so many international collaborators into our band, like students who pass through SOAS, or you know, just musicians who live in London, because the Uyghur community here is quite small, you know, and there aren't that many musicians around. So it's just been really constantly given us new life, you know, to bring these new musicians into our group, Japanese, Iranian, Turkish, and to play with them. It's one of the great things about London. And they all love Uyghur music, Rahima?
Yeah, and we performed this in so many different venues: British Museum, V&A, British Library, and the Science Museum, and I remember there's so many different venues, and I do miss that. Those I particularly like, actually, the smaller venues. I feel more kind of intimate, and yeah. So hopefully, once this lockdown is over, we will have more opportunity. And we did. I think most of the concerts were in SOAS as well. I love the Brunei. That video, by the way, was also performed in Brunei Gallery. Yeah.
Someone's asking if we've got live performances planned. Actually, we have a mini tour of Denmark planned, oddly. So if anyone's heading that way in September. Yeah.
Was it Sweden as well?
Just Denmark.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's again, it's so brilliant to hear, and you are right, there are two very different performances, and the second is more intimate, but it's just as interesting and just as enjoyable to watch. We're just going to move on to some questions. So just to speak to our audience, if you have any questions, you can message them in the chat, and you will have the opportunity to have your question read out and given to our panelists here today. I just have a couple of questions from, yet again, that I would like to kick off this section with. The first being to either Rahima or to Rachel, how would you summarize Uyghur culture to someone who has never come across it before?
Okay, that should be Rachel.
Oh, man.
Because for me, it's too many things.
Yeah, no, that's quite hard, isn't it? You know, well, once you know the culture too well, to sum it up in a few words is really hard. But I would say that the emotion is always to the fore in Uyghur culture. It's very powerful, and it moves between the really kind of heart-wrenching stuff, the really profound, and serious stuff, and then to the kind of joy really quickly, you know. So it's very powerful emotionally. I do find that. And, it is all about community, always. I do find that, it's all about, I mean, just generally, if we're talking about Uyghur culture, we have to mention the word hospitality, right? I mean, that was my first kind of really shocking lesson in Uyghur culture, that hospitality is a really very serious thing. And, if you go especially to like the rural areas, you're not going to escape until you've been to at least like 6 families and they've all killed a sheep and want you to eat quite a lot of it, So I mean, that there is that incredible warmth as well, although it can be a bit oppressive at times, right? But I mean, the warmth of that is incredible.
That's true. I remember when Zulfikar visited a family in 2012, and one of the conversation, he said, "Can you just tell them, don't force me to eat? Everywhere I go, they're forcing me to eat." That's a kind of sort of hospitality, and people will just offer everything, and always like keep the best for the guests, and put away and hiding the best for that to offer the guests. And so musical tradition we already spoke about, and the family also is a very important, and respecting the elderly, and that is another very important kind of tradition in the Uyghur culture. So that togetherness, big weddings and the big the parties. But sadly, I don't think it is happening now. So that's why I think they are trying to completely break up the Uyghurs. So they break the lineage, the connection, the root, the origin. That is the I think the reason that the Uyghur people wasn't assimilated, especially in the places where the most dense populated. They were just like that bond that they couldn't break, and so they are attacking this the very heart of the Uyghur spirit, that is a culture and language and tradition, and of course also Islamic belief. So sadly, that is what we are now losing, and so we feel that we have duty to preserve wherever we are. Yeah, that tradition, that beauty, and yeah, community spirit.
I think, oh, Rachel, where are you gonna go?
Oh, yeah, just briefly to say, there was a question about books or documentaries. So I just shared the website of our current project about Meshrep, which is quite a fun place to see a bit of writing and some great videos of Meshrep in Uyghur communities.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. And yeah, thanks for sharing. I guess that the important aspects of Uyghur culture, I feel like you guys captured it really well. We just have another question. So that was submitted. What is the best way we can support Uyghur culture here in the UK?
I think Ziba, you can answer that on behalf of Tarim as well. You know, you're doing very important project fundraising for that, the language, and yeah, organize cultural events. You know, invite people to talk in poetry, and especially Uyghur poetry. We can find bunch of poets everywhere. Uyghurs, we love poetry. And yeah, maybe I should leave you to talk about that project.
Yeah, sure. I can speak a little bit about Tarim Networks. Yeah, so I think I introduced it at the start. Tarim Network, just give a brief overview, but essentially our purpose is to unite, inspire, and advance the Uyghur youth. And for that, we have a lot of events like Rahima mentioned. We invite certain people to talk. We have our own podcasts, as well as the seminars where we invite Uyghur people to give, I guess, seminars on interesting things that are going around. And essentially it's open to, you know, anyone that these events you can join, and for them you can get a lot of I guess you can learn a lot about Uyghur culture from it. So something else that we're doing is also the standard Uyghur curriculum, and essentially we're teaching a comprehensive and standardized Uyghur curriculum to Uyghur children in the diaspora community. So there's so much going on. I think I'm just going to link the Tarim Network's website because, you know, everything is on there. And yeah, I think it is a really good organization that is here in the UK, and it's helping advance the Uyghur culture and share it with people all around the world.
Yeah, the best way is to get involved and yeah, also donate to those kind of really great projects, preserving the language, and yeah, organize events, spread the words. Yeah, maybe Rachel has anything to add.
Yeah, no, I mean that's about it. I'm really very keen on the Tarim network, just for the way that they're linking young Uyghur people across the continents, you know, in all these different parts of the diaspora. So just doing such important work there.
Yeah. For sure. Like, I think you know, there's different levels of involvement for sure. Like if you can donate, it's really nice, but just coming to the events, I think you can learn a lot about the Uyghur culture, and it can really open your eyes to a whole new world. So I really encourage you guys to check us out, I guess. A little bit of self-promo, but yeah.
Yeah, there are many books as well you can buy on Amazon if you want to deepen your knowledge about the culture, about poetry, about history. And there are quite a lot of books published lately. And for example, poem, like I am one of quite fan of poetry, Uyghur poetry. So like Uyghur Land by Ahmadjan Osman and Tahir Ilgiz, Tahir Hamud, his work, and also follow Joshua Freeman, and he is one of the scholar who speaks Uyghur language, who did many translation, and they translated the Uyghur most prominent Uyghur poets' work. And also you can just go on YouTube and try to find all the wonderful clips, whether you like classical or pop or you know, traditional folk. you can find nowadays with internet. You can just, as long as you type Uyghur music or classical instrumental, you will find so much information there that you can and that maybe you ended up start learning instrument or become musician. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah, thank you. And as Jaya is saying in the chat, we will be able to email the attendees tonight with some of the information that has been mentioned, the organizations and the resources. Just to move on to another question, at the tribunal in London a few weeks back, we had this quite interesting description of a cultural genocide that is happening against the Uyghurs at the moment, particularly in Xinjiang. And this idea of, as you mentioned as well, Rachel, a hollowing out of culture and everything that makes Uyghur people in China Uyghur. So I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about that concept, and also how music is used in the Uyghur region at the moment to discipline Uyghurs and attract tourists, as we've heard a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, this has really been something that I found quite striking recently. This is really like the second phase, I feel, in the whole campaign. So, you know, the camps have been built. Many people have passed through this kind of re-education, and they've moved out. Many of them are now undergoing forced labor in these new factories. And the latest move from the Chinese government really seems to be to really promote the region as this kind of massive tourist destination. You know, so over the past couple of months, especially, I've just seen this incredible procession of videos. First of all, you know, happy Uyghur peasants in the fields, happily picking cotton, you know, and singing and being happy, and all this, which was kind of annoying. And then there was even a big kind of song and dance movie that was released, and again it was this constant theme of like happy Uyghurs being happy and harmonious as part of the big happy family of Chinese peoples. You know, you get this idea. So you know, I really just feel quite bitter when I see that kind of like happy performance of Uyghur music these days. I mean, it's an odd thing for a musicologist, right, to get so kind of angry when she hears the music that she loves being performed. But I mean, it really is a very kind of blunt propaganda tool that we're seeing here. So, you know, this is my big thing at the moment, really just resisting, kicking back at these very dominant images of singing and dancing Uyghurs, because everything is not fine, you know, and these people who are, you know, smiling and singing about how welcome these tourists are, you know, I mean, undoubtedly they are under huge personal pressure themselves. Their relatives are undoubtedly, many of them still in internment camps, or they're living under the threat of going back in. So yeah, I just wanted to get that one out there.
Yeah, just adding to that, I mean, you know, growing up and born into that kind of family, very musical and surrounded by musicians, that, you know, from childhood, you know, every song that we sang had a very deep meaning. It's not like to just please others. It's more about the soul, about the you know, especially the poetry in Uyghur music is just so deep. It covers a range of from love, respect, and also there are songs is to encourage people to seek knowledge, for example, and there are songs about Diqan, the peasants, the hard working, their beautiful personality and the unselfishness. and friendship and all that. This is all in the Uyghur songs is very much cover all that kind of sort of human stories and feelings, and express the love, loss, and also in a way to pass on the message and knowledge and etc. And therefore, the what the Chinese government is doing when I watch those stage kind of recorded, or it remind me of the like monkeys in the zoo, that how they try to train them and to attract the tourists. It's really, really sad. And you can see, I mean, as artist myself, I can just see whether the people singing it, they're just copying from something, or whether they are singing from heart, from their heart. So whatever it is displayed, even including the latest, the Eid performance in outside the Eidgah Mosque, the Chinese government organized people, selected the Uyghur youth from different towns, and apparently took them all to the Eidgah Mosque, and then for them to dance. Because it's one of the quite big tradition about Eidgah Mosque, is that every Eid, in a year, 2 Eid, Qurban Eid and Rosh Eid, after people come out from the Eid prayer, and then there is a music, the Nagar Sunay, and this is century-old tradition, and people dance Sama. So the Sama is a very natural thing. But when you watch this recorded Sama, the latest one, is like trained. People all going one direction, but if you look at the old, like a spontaneous, that kind of performances, is very different. So you can just identify whether that is happened naturally, whether it was organized, and then trying to show the world that, hey, look, we are not really banning their tradition. Look, they are still can go to pray their Eid prayers, and then they can still dance. So yeah, a lot of people from Kashgar, they wrote comments, very interesting comments, and I said, that's why that is not it happened naturally. It is a state organized kind of show.
Yeah, I mean, that really is one of the particular things about this particular crisis, that the levels of disinformation are just so extraordinarily high. It's this constant battle, especially a lot of these battles are going on social media at the moment, just to assert these very self-evident truths. While I'm at it, thank you, Amelia, for sharing that blog. That's nice. And I also wanted to thank Kerba. Sorry, I can't, not quite sure what the name is, but we have an extremely engaged attendee here, and I just wanted to appreciate all these contributions that have been coming from Kerba. Thank you. Really, really helpful. Obviously, we've got someone very passionate and informed about the situation.
Yeah, I think those are all the questions that from the audience. Also, Kerba says Mahnur is my name. We met in London, so we can put a name to the. Yeah, but yeah, I think those are all the questions from the audience. Unless if there's any last questions, you can feel free to send them in. But just, I guess, to wrap up, on behalf of Tarim Networks, I really wanted to thank Rachel Harris and you, Rahima, for sharing with us today. It was amazing to see the clips. of you two, I mean, performing and singing, and we could see all the talent that was so evident within the videos. And also just giving us an insight into Uyghur culture, you know, Uyghur music, and but also shedding light onto what is happening, you know, in our homeland now. So that was just so amazing to see. So I really want to thank you guys for that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to reiterate on behalf of Yet Again too, thank you so much, Rahima and Rachel, for spending your evenings with us. It's been a very valuable webinar, and the performances were brilliant, and it's really amazing that we can share this with our audiences today. As well, thanks to the teams at Yet Again and Tarim Network for working to create this event, and the audience. Just before I ask Rachel and Rahima if there's anything else they'd like to contribute, just to our audience today, if you or someone you know would like to contribute to a feature session on Uyghur culture, please get in touch with Yet Again or Tarim Network. And these are topics that may cover, like today, music or dance, dress, literature, poetry, to name some examples. If you would like to contribute to a future session, please get in touch with us and we may be able to make that happen. And just for any final remarks, I'll pass over to Rachel and Rahima.
No, just thank you again. Been very impressed by your organisational skills, you guys, at Yet Again, especially your promotion. Wow.
Yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, appreciate all your hard work. And so, yeah, we are here always if you need us. And yeah, have a lovely evening.
Brilliant, thank you so much. The recording of this event will be on the social media of Yet Again and Tarim Network in the coming weeks, so please look out for that. So thank you everyone and good evening. Bye.
Thank you.